Hi, welcome. I'm Kendra Kitchen. I'm happy to be here with you today. I am a board certified behavior analyst and I have been working with children with autism and their families for the past 19 years. And I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about this topic today. We're going to be continuing our ongoing series on the functions of problem behavior. If you're unsure what a function is, it simply means why the problem behavior is happening. So it's really important whenever your child engages in problem behavior that you are aware of the why behind the behavior, and that's going to help you respond appropriately to that challenging behavior to make sure it's less likely to happen again. If you missed our first video in this series, feel free to pause right now and go back and watch that. My colleague Sabiha introduced the 4 functions. Just a brief overview, the 4 functions are self-stimulatory, escape, attention, and tangible. Just to help you out, we use the acronym SEAT. S-E-A-T. Hopefully that helps you remember all of them. So today we're going to talk about the function of self-stimulatory behavior. Self-stimulatory behaviors are what we call the feel-good behaviors. So usually children and adults engage in these behaviors simply because it feels good to them. It may also meet a sensory need that the child has at that time. Your children might engage in these behaviors when they are bored or not really engaged in anything else, or they might do them when they're engaged in a mindless task like watching TV. I do understand that sometimes these are concerning for parents, but just remember all of us engage in self-stimulatory behavior at some point.
Hey, don't do that.
Put it out. It's worse than the thumb.
Hey, this is so unfair.
Why is it unfair?
So I have a flaw. Big deal. Like Joey's constant knuckle cracking isn't annoying, and Ross with his overpronouncing every single word, and Monica with that snort when she laughs. I mean, what the hell is that thing?
Does the knuckle cracking bother everybody or just me?
Well, I could live without it.
Was it like a little annoying, or is it like when Phoebe chews her hair?
All right, so while you may not chew on your hair or crack your knuckles, I think we can all understand that everybody engages in some sort of self-stimulatory behavior at some point. And I think it's good for us to give our children a little bit of grace. It's important for us to understand that they are children first, and all children do weird things. It's just a normal part of childhood. They are growing and developing and exploring their bodies. And so it's really helpful for us to remember they're a child, and they're probably going to do some things that we find a little bit concerning or a little bit strange, and sometimes that's okay. We don't typically recommend that we intervene on self-stimulatory behaviors unless it meets one of 3 criteria. So the first criteria when we would intervene for a self-stimulatory behavior is going to be if it's dangerous. So if they are self-harming, for example, and maybe they bite their finger or they're hitting themselves in the head, perhaps they're throwing dangerous objects and it might hurt someone else, those are times where we would definitely want to intervene. The second instance in which we would intervene for self-stimulatory behavior is going to be if they are potentially missing out on a current social situation. So for example, they're on the playground and a peer approaches them and wants to play, but our child is scripting a current movie that they enjoy and ignoring the peer. We want to redirect them towards this current social situation so they don't miss out on a social opportunity. The third instance in which we would intervene for a self-stimulatory behavior is if the child is preparing to enter school, particularly in a general education classroom, and we don't want them engaging in behaviors that would be really distracting to their peers. So for example, if your child maybe hums while they're doing their homework, to us that doesn't seem like such a big deal, but in a general education classroom that would be very distracting to their peers. So we might need to practice that at home just to not be engaging in those behaviors while they are doing their schoolwork. If your child does engage in a self-stimulatory behavior and it meets one of those 3 criteria, then the simplest intervention is going to be a redirection. Okay, this is non-aggressive. We're simply redirecting them to a more appropriate task. We want this task to meet a few criteria. So the first one is it needs to be known. This means that it needs to be an activity the child knows how to do and is usually willing to do without a major issue. Okay, so we want to make sure it's something they are familiar with and comfortable with doing. The second thing is we want to make sure that it's neutral. So when an activity is neutral, that means it's not aversive, so it's not work-related or the child doesn't hate it. But we also want to make sure it's not reinforcing. The challenge with offering a reinforcing item after a problem behavior is that we could be making the problem behavior more likely to happen in the future. So for example, if your child is biting their finger and you offer them your phone and they get to watch videos, then in the future we might be making finger biting more likely to happen because something good came after it. Right? So we want to avoid giving anything reinforcing after these behaviors. So make sure that what you're offering is a neutral activity. And the last thing we try to offer, and may not always be possible, is something that's incompatible. That means they cannot continue to do the problem behavior while they are also doing this new activity. So for example, if they are flapping their hands and I give them a puzzle to do, it's very hard to continue to flap their hands and put a puzzle together. Or if they are engaging in self-biting and I offer them a sip of water, that would be incompatible because they cannot continue to bite their finger and sip water at the same time. So those are some things to consider when you're looking at what to redirect them to. Here is a video example of what this redirection might look like. Hey, bud. All right, look. We can look at this book. You hold it. Nice job, buddy. You saw in this video, my son was hitting himself in the leg and I was kind of concerned that he was hurting himself. So I decided to intervene just by redirecting him to a neutral activity. He doesn't love doing puzzles, but he's willing to do them. And so I redirected him to that. It also stopped the hitting because he can't hit and put the puzzle together at the same time. So that is an example of redirection. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to have you here. Join us next time when we talk about escape maintain behaviors.